Y'all know what it is.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Eggs. Today's special guest is founder of the Adaptable Mindset Program, Robert Overweg. Coming from an art and technology background, Robert observed a correlation between the rapidly changing and evolving world and what seemed to be a decline in mental adaptability. This insight led to the creation of the Adaptable Mindset Program, a program designed to help individuals and teams create mental space and become connected to what they find meaningful, leading to change, innovation, and happier lives. Since its inception, the Adaptable Mindset Program has been employed by the Fortune 500, many SME businesses, and many thousands of students and solopreneurs worldwide through their online program. Joining us today for a much-needed discussion about the essential ability to adapt and change perspective in a world that is constantly on the move, how to connect back to meaning and learn from life, how to deal with information overload and keep your sanity in an always-on world, and so much more. Please join us in welcoming to the show, Robert Overweg. Hey, Robert, how are you, man?
Yeah, very good, man. What a wonderful intro. We should work together, man. This is you should copy a marketing. This is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm happy to send you a copy of the tape if that helps.
Cool.
Cool. So, Robert, let's kind of start at the beginning. Let's talk a little bit. Obviously, we led with it a little bit in the intro, but let's talk a little bit about who you are and how you got to doing what you're doing today. You have kind of an interesting backstory.
Yeah, my name is Robert Overweg, and I've been running around in innovation for over a decade now. So before that, I started my own design agency actually when I was like 17, because I had the idea that I can make like in 1 hour what I can make working in a supermarket for an entire day. So that already, and I loved just designing stuff and doing those kind of things. Then I went further into explore that realm, design, art, and I went to the art academy. And when I was finished there, I sort of developed this autonomous thinking, critical thinking, had the ability to visualize stuff, and that was something that was also needed within organizations. So they started knocking at my door of wanting to work with me, like eBay, Liberty Global, like these large organizations. And there I saw, after like 5 years working with these kind of organizations, that very few people had the ability to adapt. A lot of people felt unhappy, not connected to their intrinsic motivation, not curious anymore. And I was like, guys, what the heck is going on, man? Why aren't we living our lives to the fullest potential? Due to the system, due to our upbringing, due to how we set up our lives. And I was like, dude, we really need to fix this, because we're burning up people, we're not getting the creativity that we want. And so I think almost 5 years ago, we founded the Adaptable Mindset method, and we kept on experimenting, iterating, and now we're able to serve and help and support and empower people all over the globe. So it's pretty fantastic ride so far.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And it's funny, you and I have some similar background. Basically, I run a design agency now. So we have some things in common. And in fact, I smelled it immediately when I got on your website. I could tell that you were sort of, had a design background. Mm-hmm. But one thing that was interesting that sort of came out when I was preparing for this show is something occurred to me that I'd never really thought of before. And Mike might be able to pile on this too from a technologist perspective. But basically, art and technology both are really good examples of disciplines where you're constantly solving little problems along the way, right? You're iterating. Even if you're just putting paper to pencil or pencil to paper, every little drawing, oh God, does this curve work or does that curve work better? Or whether you're putting code in a computer, is this the right solution, or maybe we should try and work around it this way, And so I believe that those disciplines in particular, and there are probably other examples, sort of build a little bit of a resilience, by their very nature, sort of like what we're talking about, right? And so it's not something that's maybe clear to, I don't know, somebody working in an organization as it might be to an artist or a technologist. And so I thought that was an interesting observation. But I wondered if that sort of mindset, sort of the mindset of being an artist, is what led to this, or if you always sort of had sort of this eye on motivation and adaptability.
Good question. But maybe first explore the point a little bit that you mentioned that. So you talk about doing art or design, that it helps you in forming your mind, and that it also helps you in your business, right? And I think like art, sports, like, but whatever you want to do, as long as you can fail there, as long as you learn to deal with uncertainty and ambiguity, like you can learn that in any domain, and those skills get transferred to all other domains as well, so also to business. And that is also what we see if we look at a lot of people who had great scientific discoveries, or very good entrepreneurs, that they had these play spaces almost where they could develop and nurture their own thinking and explore and fail and learn to deal with uncertainty. Um, so I think you can almost do it like everywhere. And I think it's for everyone, it's find that place where you can do that and also consciously experience that. That is how it works. That being said, I do think like the artistic mindset and just being influenced by so many great and beautiful things, which like so much expand your mind, that I can't think anymore that something is not possible, because I've seen so many impossible things. I've seen so many weird and different things that I do think that it rewired my brain to be able to see more perspectives, to be able to see more possibilities. So I do think that that happened. And that is also what everyone can learn, actually, just by exposing yourself to these things, being in that space, putting it into your mind instead of your, for an example, endless scrolling on Instagram or watching another series on Netflix, right? Where you are the product. Think of yourself as the product, as more of like a garden that also needs beauty and poetry and meaning. And if you put that more into your brain, that will help you developing that adaptability.
Yeah, and just
Yeah.
to add on, I wanted to just say too that I think there's like an act of bravery in doing something artistic or performative like sports or something like that. So to your point about all those things contributing to, the life of an entrepreneur, I think you're right, because it does take a certain amount of putting yourself out there to be successful in business or to be a successful artist, designer, technologist, whatever you're going to do. Anytime you're putting your work or yourself out there for critique, it's seems to be building a skill set that will serve you in life.
100%.
So one of the things that I've been doing lately is instead of watching TV, I've been watching YouTube, but not your, just random cat video. I've been studying like anything that I have an interest in. I study that, and like you said, watering the plant kind of thing. And I've noticed a significant change in just my overall mentality just based off of that. I have kind of gone down the news rabbit hole lately, and I try to do that as little as I can. But as far as like just Netflix watching and stuff like I used to do, I've been doing more of the tutorials and the training, and just kind of trying to water the plant, like you said.
Yeah.
Can you
Can I chime in on that as well?
Sure.
Because I think it's very important to curate your streams. Like most people go through life and just experience what news is feeding them, or what YouTube algorithm is feeding them, or your Twitter feed. But be very conscious of what is in there, and check if the things that are in there, if they contribute to your goals and to your values. Otherwise, they are living you and they are influencing your life. So why not have it influence your life positively, so that you create a constantly flowing river of beauty that is coming towards you, that the algorithm serves you instead of distracts you. I think
So
that is an important thing as well.
YouTube is horrible for that. You can click as many times as you want on "Don't share this video with me," and you'll see another one exactly like it right next. And it's very frustrating. And I have used programs like Skillshare, and I've used programs like LinkedIn Learning and other stuff like that. The problem is with those is sometimes they're a little dated. So trying to stay up to date with current technologies and things that are changing, lots of times the only place you can find is on YouTube. So, there's pretty much anything you need on there. So it's kind of like my go-to resource. And then if I want a deeper dive, then I'll try and track it down on LinkedIn Learning or something like that.
Yeah, cool.
So it's kind of obvious in the name, adaptable mindset program. But can you break it down for us a little bit? What is the program? And then take us back to the early days as far as like when you first started it and how you kind of started developing the program and things you noticed and things you changed along the way.
Yeah, sure. So when we started with a partnership with the University of Applied Sciences in Amsterdam, and we literally just created an online program where people could follow their own path, completely based on curiosity. So you could start with art, philosophy, nature, comics, learn from whatever. So we have a large part of expanding the mind. Then we had a second segment more on creating mental space, taking care of the mind. And then we had a third part of how to integrate that a bit more. And we just, yeah, a lot of things came from intuition, from research, from reading what we saw that worked within large organizations, and we just exposed that to people. Said like, hey, this is out there. This is what we made. And then we had a couple thousand people go through that program, mainly students, but also architects, and we got such beautiful feedback back on what works, because it's in a sense it was just like a plethora, a very large overview of all different possibilities, all different kinds of inspiration. And we start to notice like patterns of what worked for whom. And then we noticed that like these development paths, they are very, very individual. So you vibe very well with learning on YouTube about how to craft things, how to make things. But for someone else, they should maybe start somewhere else, right? And maybe they should go for long walks, or maybe they should create music, or so it's finding what works for what person, and then keep on pulling on that thread, and yeah, based on their curiosity, keep on developing that instead of us saying from a very dogmatic perspective, this is what you should be doing. So it's constantly finding the energy, what energizes you, and then based on that, or also then what blocks you. So some people are afraid to fail. Some people don't have mental space. And for all of these things, there are solutions. It's just, you need to be able to find it. In first, you need to be aware. Then you need to be able to know what is out there. And we just gathered a lot of different tools and just keep on experimenting. Use a little bit of logic, but also listen profoundly, like to see what works and then iterate based on that. And that is, again, a very startup approach, right? You just put something in the market like an MVP, and then you iterate based on feedback. And that's what we've been doing for forever since.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing it?
I think we've been working on the methodology for 5 years. And in the beginning, I had the idea that, these online programs, that's a shit. That's definitely going to be the main driver of everything. But recently, we did a festival for a large organization for 300 people. And a month ago, that idea didn't even exist yet. But it was just the organization had not so much creativity. People felt little energy, but they had to change because they were not doing so well, like financially. But if you're in that state, if there's stress, if there's no mental space, then asking people to change is very, very difficult. So we thought first we need to give them the right environment where they can explore, where they can connect with each other again, connect to their creativity, create mental space. And that's what we did for an entire week. But that is just very much listening to what is needed and then stepping into that role. So there's no one solution anymore. It's just listening to what is needed and doing that.
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing. And I wonder if we couldn't sort of, I guess, maybe frame part of our conversation a little bit and zoom out a little bit and just sort of define what is this adaptability that we're talking about. I mean, for me, in my mind, it's the ability to context switch or roll with the punches, these kinds of things. But I wondered if you'd sort of talk about just sort of how you guys and your organization defines this mental adaptability and why we need it at all.
Yeah. Thanks for that sanity check and for trying to frame it a bit. So it is about the ability to always be able to find fresh perspectives, to indeed flow through life, to be more happy, be more engaged, be able to do the things that you want to do, maybe even the things that you don't even know yet that you want to do, or that you secretively hide from society or from your family, from people. That it's for people to step into the person that they can become. So that is on the individual aspect, and then for organizations always want stuff from top down, right? They want to be more data driven, for people to get to their KPIs or OKRs, but that is not what people want. So we try to connect also the company goals to what people want, and start with people first. Start with creating the right space, creating the mental space, and to explain it a bit more of what the different modalities that entail and sit within Adaptable Mindset Program is. So one important aspect is getting in touch with the beauty in the world, like the most beautiful poetry, but it can also be games. It can also be movies. It can be art, architecture, to connect more to that in a very structural way. And we've got a beautiful, quite a lot of insights and inspiration that will surely get you out of just your purely rational and cognitive mind. It will almost make you feel like stardust, like, wow, is this possible in the world? That, you get into like this different energetic state almost. And I think you need that to be able to wanting to move forward. Because if you just tell people to, hey, you should change, no one wants that. And a lot of people sort of fear change as well. So you got to make it attractive and based on curiosity. But also, a lot of people are just constantly on, right? Constantly in meetings, back to back, connected to their Instagram, connected, always getting input, which doesn't really help nurture the soul. So you also need a bit of space. You need to create mental space. Like Edison said, that he was just there. He was just there to receive ideas. Einstein was he's very much known for sailing for multiple hours, doing nothing. You see Steve Jobs went for long walks to procrastinate. Sundar Pichai starts his morning without his phone, with his tea ritual, with a paper newspaper. People create space. You see that, like, all high performers have ways to create space. Or for an example, the founding father of artificial intelligence did a lot of juggling, unicycling. So lots of weird stuff can also be through exercise, of course, right? Through yoga, running, strength training. It also creates a mental space and also strengthens the body, which also strengthens the mind. It's all very logical. A kid knows this, but it seems like we've forgotten about it. And also how we set up our work, like work from 9 to 5 or 9 to 7, or how crazy you want to make it. Where are these breaks for this new boost of energy? Where are these breaks for going out for a walk? Where are these breaks for doing nothing for an hour? Who can do that still? But in that space, you can subconsciously process also the things that you put in. You can use that to reflect, and your brain can just tap into the vast amount of knowledge that you have in your brain. So that is also an important aspect. And then, so we've got exercise, movement, mental space, taking care of your input, your inspiration, and also how you speak to yourself and to others. So most people say, yeah, that probably won't work. Or, yeah, we've always done it in this way. And you're like, oh, dude, if you say that, it becomes a reality. So why not say, let's try it on for size? Or how might we? To also reframe your own programming and reprogram yourself. In a sense, you're creating a new operating system on all aspects of the things that I just described.
So I love that you brought that up. The gaming, the going for a walk, the when you hit a roadblock, like say I work in web development and stuff like that, and if my brain gets overloaded, I get stressed, I go for a walk. I go out and I like landscaping. I'll work in the yard for an hour and come back, and you sit down at the computer, and it's almost without fail, problem fixes itself and you can move on to the next step. As a kid, I would play the piano. One of my favorite, I would do it mainly to avoid doing the dishes after dinner. That was my usual time that I'd play the piano. But I would notice that when I'm sitting there playing it, that's my world. I can think, I'm the actual song, the actual playing the notes didn't really matter. My brain was kind of going in the back end, and it allowed me to kind of do a hard reset on my brain. And I wish I had one. I don't have one anymore. So, because I want to be able to do that again. But I love that you brought that up. It's so critical to be able to just kind of take a step back, think, and think about anything. I've heard stories of people just doing the dishes, and all of a sudden the problem that they had 2 weeks ago pops into their head, and they have a solution. And it's like
fantastic.
Yeah.
You can also use it before you go to sleep. Now you need to have a little bit of a clarity of mind, so not too much stress. But if you just go to sleep and ask your brain, hey brain, could you maybe come up with a solution for this and that problem? And if it doesn't work, that's also okay. But it would be nice to just have a general direction. And often, you'll wake up like, hey, I got it. Or, we all know the shower thoughts as well. And I think it's, if you first take care of putting the proper nutrition in your brain, the proper input, the things that nurture your soul, and then create the space, that's like the ideal combo. But, I call the phone the distractotron. It's always there to not give you that mental space, to not give you the ability to explore, to let your mind wander. Because letting your mind wander, there's research also which shows that it helps you to humanize your experience, but it also helps you to connect the dots. But we're not connecting the dots anymore. We're just reacting. And you see that in organizations as well, by the way, that a lot of organizations, how they innovate, it's just copying what other people are doing, because people don't have vision anymore, because they can't think for themselves anymore, because they're being lived by the outside world. It's a bit harsh, but that's the way I see it.
Well, it's true. One example that I always use, and it's probably a little bit rudimentary, but it's, the Steve Jobs version of Apple versus the Tim Cook version of Apple. When you had a Steve Jobs, you're coming up with iPads and iPhones and, iPods and Apple Music, and, you're creating all these things that are first in class. These are the innovations. And, Tim Cook comes in, and man, he can run the hell out of a business. He knows how to make money. He knows how to do all that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, outside of innovation, you can't really see. We have better versions of computers. We have better versions of iPhones. We have better versions of iPads. But ostensibly, it's the same thing, right? It's a tablet. It's a phone. It's a computer, just like they always were. But the visionary version of Apple, where you had a Steve Jobs who was innovating or coming up with something new, versus the guy who's just kind of iterating and making better. I think is a clear example of what you're describing.
Yeah. Do you know what Jobs said? He said, try to expose yourself to the most beautiful things that humans have done, and then try to bring those things into your work. And I think that might be at least one of the essences of work, just to make your work more energizing, more uplifting, and to empower yourself. And also they have their own university on the Apple campus. And in that university, they teach about the value of simplicity, for an example, and they look at the edges of Picasso, where you see that in every edge that he tries to get to the most rudimentary, most simplistic form, while it's still recognizable. Just a few lines. It starts with like a real beautiful illustration, very recognizable. Then it becomes very abstract. But by exposing yourself to that, you learn on a different level what it could mean, what simplicity means, right? And it's just nice to be in such a space. But you can also learn it like from a game, from a movie, from your sport. It doesn't really matter as long as you do put in the work.
So one of the recurring themes in a lot of your work, and I've seen it in other interviews of you and also on your website, is talking about sort of finding our meaning and trying to understand what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. Especially in business parlance, the old start with why thing with Simon Sinek, was it seems like a big shift in the way that people sort of were addressing business, but as individuals too, understanding our meaning is critical. And I wonder, and this sort of ties into what you were saying about distraction and everything else with the cell phones, but it seems like so many of us have lost sight of what it is that brings us joy or is our meaning. And a lot of that is because we don't have any time to think about it, or we're busy living somebody else's meaning, or we're, somebody's told us something. And so we adopt it as our own, even if it's not truly our thought. And so I wondered if you could have, or if we could talk a little bit about just sort of finding our meaning. And, and I think this goes back to what you said about sort of tying the business goals to the individual goals, which is, how do we find, not only the business's meaning, but a sure proper fit with the employees, because we all have the same meaning, or we're all working towards the same objective.
Yeah, wonderful. Maybe first explore the first point that indeed our social media and our just computer usage, it can severely distract us from finding meaning or being in contact with our curiosity, which is a real thing, and which is also a real issue, because the pool is so strong of those technologies. So you should find ways how to put in like barriers, so you can also find what is meaningful to you, instead of being forced on you what might be meaningful to you, or what is not even meaningful to you, but is just attractive or just distractive. So for that, we also developed a way of thinking, right? That if you can think of what is valuable to you, let's say put it on the right side of an A4 sheet, then you can also come up with solutions and stuff that you can do, which you can use to override the things that distract you. For example, your TikTok, Facebook, etc. So, and then you can create like little actions that every time you want to use your Instagram or you want to do X or Y, you see if it contributes to your values, and then what you could be doing instead. So you create like almost like escapes, almost like things to override that. And also what we notice is that also in organizations, when people are not connected to what they find meaningful, you get more stress and you get more depression. When you have that, a stressful mind, you can only have, when you are on severe stress, you can only have like 20% left of your thinking capacity. Good luck being creative. Good luck doing innovation with 20% of your brain capacity. So we have that as well, and we see from organizational research that once people are connected to what intrinsically motivates them, you get a higher creative and innovative outcome. Wow, we're so amazed by this. But I think our entire goal should be to optimize for intrinsic motivation, for what you find meaningful, and it can start very simply. What you're curious about. Is it Web3? Is it NFTs? Is it AI? Is it the chatbot? Is it painting? Is it taking care of people? Whatever it is. Start
I think
there
you
and
just
see
named
how.
like 8 things that Ryan does.
Yeah, but it's good to have a broad view on curiosity and be very broadly connected, I think, because then you'll be able to synthesize from all of these things and just remix, and then you won't even know where it's coming from. And then, that makes your life more adaptable, flexible, beautiful.
Well, so to Mike's point, or his little comment there about, all the things that I'm involved with or all the things I'm interested in,
yeah.
I am for sure one of these guys who gloms onto a lot of different things. And, part of it is curiosity, right? And then, but I also have a knack for grabbing onto things and then kind of making that my business, right? So even if it's not necessarily what I think is the most important thing, maybe I see it as a trend, or maybe I see it as an opportunity, or maybe I see it as something like this. And so what I found is over the years, I struggle personally with trying to kind of understand what my purpose is, right? I mean, I've got a few core things that I could point to and go, okay, well, this is something I do. This is something I do. But I've got so many layers, like layer upon layer upon layer of somebody suggested this, so I'm trying that. Somebody says this, maybe there's an opportunity there, so chase that. Somebody, so there's all these different layers. And then it gets really hard to even kind of know yourself, right? Because you're so overwhelmed with all the many things that it's like, how do you strip it back down to you? Does that make any sense? So, I mean, getting back to the Apple metaphor of stripping things down to their most simple form, how do you get back to just being human when you've spent basically an entire career chasing everything that you see, or trying to understand the trend or hit on what's next or any of those kinds of things? How do you get back to you?
Yeah, just always reacting like, maybe you could think of like take a gigantic step back and think of maybe the end of your life, and then think of how would you look back? No, how would you describe yourself, or how would other people describe yourself? And how would you want to be described? And that is probably like under that umbrella sit probably the things that you should be doing, because that is most profoundly you. Well, at the same time, I'm okay with, and of course everyone should make their own decision, but doing things which don't 100% align with your purpose. Sometimes you gotta hustle, you gotta make some money, and maybe that is 30% of your life. And then the rest of it is what you find beautiful. And maybe you don't have the capacity yet to make money in that. That's also fine. But yeah, keep doing that. And maybe you could also think of what are the things that if they would fall away, that would make you like real sad, that would really drain your energy if you wouldn't have those things anymore. I think that is important. So most things that I do when we do workshops or do organizational transformation or one-on-ones, even when I'm tired before, afterwards, like so energized, like I'm like, okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And when I feel drained, yeah, I'm not in the right spot.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I think just trying to, I guess, understand that, right? But I like how you framed it as sort of not a zero sum game, right? It's not all or nothing. Like you don't have to necessarily, and I think that's good because I think a lot of people could hear a message like this and think they're doing something wrong, right? If I'm not actually chasing my mission, but I have to work this crappy job because I need to make some money, you don't need to feel bad for that, right? Like you shouldn't feel bad because you're doing what you need to do to provide for a family, or because you're trying to grow a business or uncover a new opportunity or whatever. And so I mean, of course, if you can work in as much as possible of the things that make you happy or bring you joy, obviously you're going to be better off for it. But I think that it's fair, or it's a good point to just mention that it doesn't have to be all one way or the other.
Yeah, 100%. But it can also be in even if you're just very kind to other people, even if you're not making money yet, like being kind to everyone will already, it sounds a bit fake and weird maybe, but will already enlighten your life. Just radiate positivity if you can. And that is often, yeah, it takes work. It can take work actually. It doesn't come for free, but there's always something that you can do. And there's always something that you can work on as well. And that is one of the issues that I see that a lot of people have, that we get back from feedback as well. They have this big dream, right? But the dream, yeah, new career or live abroad or like gigantic things. But and then people freeze, like because you need to be able to break it up like in small steps. And if you feel like you are blocking yourself because you're afraid or you can't deal with the uncertainty, then you need to find ways how to deal with that uncertainty. Now, it's just reverse engineering how you're going to get at that end goal, and then see what you need to do, who you need to become to get there. And the same applies for the purpose part and connecting to meaning.
Love that. So you started doing this about 5 years ago. About 3 years ago, we had a major worldwide problem with COVID. And that's one of those things that's stressful for a lot of people. What's going on in Ukraine is stressful for a lot of people.
Yeah.
What's going on in the States right now is stressful for a lot of people. We just had a major incident yesterday. We don't need to get into politics or anything on that, but what I'm getting at is there's a lot of stressful things in the world right now. And I think that's a direct result of a lot of things that are actually happening in the world right now. And stress, you mentioned, is one of those things that, it takes away 20% of your cognitive ability to be able to process creativity.
80 actually. You only
80.
have 20% left.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I heard that wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
yeah,
80%.
Yeah.
So that's even worse than I was
terrible.
assuming.
Yeah.
What are some things that people can do to combat stress and to realize that, the world's going to continue and move on, and we can get past these things?
Yeah. So I'll get into that. So, but although the world can feel like it's on fire, and sometimes it literally is, also being exposed to that 24/7 also does something with your brain. Like if you watch a lot of crime scenes, crime series, you will also look into the world in a more negative way. Like it's a back and forth two-way street of influence. So you should also be conscious of that. So sure, it is wise to be exposed to what is happening in the world, but also be exposed to the beauty, to solutions, to possibilities, and Also put those things into your head. Otherwise, your head will be just overflown with negativity. And that's what you will then also put out into the world and see as a reality. Well, it's not, because also a lot of beautiful things in the world are happening. Like people are trying to fix shit, trying to change things, trying to save the rainforest, doing all sorts of beautiful things. So I want to say that as well. And that also helps with reducing stress. Now, of course, exercise is one of the most important things. Strength training, running, yoga, meditation, like whatever works for you, cycling, going for a 30-minute walk, using less of your phone. So start your day without your phone, have it on flight mode as long as possible. Turn off all push messages. So live more of in the moment with yourself, with your family, with your friends, with your loved ones. Connect more with them, support them, help other people. Now, even if you're pissed off, try to help someone else then. You can't be pissed off anymore. You just get positive vibes back again. And all of these things, they're not one-offs. I think you should very much make that part of your system of who you are. Like so I do like 3 to 4 times indoor rock climbing, and I need that. Otherwise, my mind just overflows, and I need my walks, and I need my sort of alone time, and everything on my technology is always off. So everything is in do not disturb. And I work with these like high profile clients, and they can't even call me. I can only call them back or send them a text. And that's how I manage. And for everyone, it's something else, something different. But it's finding that formula. But actually, I think most people know, right, what gives them stress, and also how they can release it, how they can improve it. It's just a matter of doing it, and then doing it often, and then that is you. But so maybe also one more thing, also what people like, letting go of thoughts is also a very useful skill. Like, I'm thinking of this, and then that you just decide, hey, thank you, Rob, for that thought, and I'm just going to let it pass. I'm just going to spend my time on something else. Similar thing, something you can learn from sports as well. So these MMA fighters, right? If they fight with each other, getting knocked out for an audience of multiple million people might be a bit scary. So you can get these thoughts of losing. And what they do is, when they get that thought, they immediately counter it with a positive thought of them winning. Like it's also taking control of where your own thoughts go. I think that is important. And also then focus on the things you can control, like the war in Ukraine. I can't do so much about that. I can maybe pick up a few refugees or something like that, but so I can every day worry about that. But what use does that do? I can help people here. I can send money. I can do those kind of things, but constantly worrying about things that I don't have influence on. And then, of course, the debate is interesting. How far does your influence reach, and that debate. But I just try to focus on putting positivity in the world, giving people the ability to find fresh perspectives, because I think that is also part of the issue. You're stressed because you think this is it, but it's not it. You can find a different perspective.
Yeah.
And then train that. Yeah.
I like to think of, like, in the States, we have this volcano area in Yellowstone that if it blows up, it's going to wipe out, 90% of the US and be a worldwide disaster. And, if you sit and ponder on that, it's pretty devastating. I mean, what if, and you can apply that to Ukraine. You can apply that to Russia. What if they'd go nuclear? What if this? What if that? Yeah. There's nothing you can do about it. And so if you constantly sit on that and try to just what if yourself to death, you're just going to be in a horrible state, and you're going to be stuck in that zone, and you can't move forward. When COVID first hit, I was in that state. I was in a fearful state for a long time because my parents are elderly. I work in an entertainment industry. It shut my entire income down, and I was in that state. I was in that headspace. I couldn't move forward. I was constantly afraid that I'm going to get this and give it to my dad, and something's going to happen. And after about 6 months of just hanging out in the basement doing nothing but fear mongering about it,
Wow.
I got on a plane and I went to Nome, Alaska, and I went gold mining with a friend of mine. And I in Nome, you don't have access to the internet, you don't have access to anything. I was just surrounded by nothing, and it was exactly what I needed, and it was the perfect mindset switch that I needed to just kind of reboot. And yeah, it was a great experience, and I just wanted to share that because if you're constantly in that I'm afraid, you're not going to move forward. You're not going to be able to accomplish anything. And just being able to step back, take 2 or 3 months and go to the wilderness, it helped. So,
yeah. Well, and that bit about, just worrying about what you can actually affect, right, is something that we work on with our kids all the time, right? I mean, you've got bullies and you've got school problems and so-and-so said this mean thing about me, or, whatever. And so much of our conversation really is that. It's right. Okay, well, you're sitting here worried, but that person said something crappy about you and isn't even thinking about you at this point. So what good does it do you to sit and worry for this awful person or this guy that said whatever? And, and I think that extends to everything, I mean, your point about, the Ukraine or whatever, like, I mean, obviously there's very little control that we have over the, actual, cogs in that machine, right? Of course there's philanthropic efforts and things like that you could be involved with. But obviously, as far as it comes to the wheels of war, your average person doesn't have a whole lot they can do about it. Doesn't mean you can't be empathetic, and it doesn't mean you can't feel bad or, wish for a better world. But at the same time, if you're, up to your eyeballs in it day in and day out, that's going to affect the way that you approach the world. And I heard somebody say one time that somebody on this planet is experiencing the end of the world, right? We always talk about the end of the world and, Armageddon, the end of days or whatever. But on any given day, it's somebody's Armageddon, right? Whether you live in a really horrible part of, Africa or something, or you're in a really impoverished area where you haven't eaten for a week and you don't know what you're going to do, or, I mean, like, people live through horrible things all the time. And so to try and say, oh, well, so-and-so was mean to me today, and that's, as bad as it could possibly be, is, seems a little trite. But then I've also heard somebody say that, the worst thing the worst thing that's happened to you is the worst thing that's happened to you. Right. So if, you stub your toe today and you've never stubbed your toe before, and that's the worst thing that's ever happened to you, well, then that's still the worst thing that's ever happened to you. Right. So, I mean, whether it's, in the grand scheme of things, that big a deal, maybe it's not, but it's still the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And so I think it's important to, recognize all that stuff. But back to your concept of sort of, mental adaptability, it's, I guess, trying to frame or understand how to react to that situation or how to deal with a situation, whether it's, really serious or whether it is just a stub toe.
Yeah. And zooming out helps. Like to your point, like, okay, this is my issue. It's a stub toe. Oh, these guys don't have any food. Okay. Yeah, maybe I need to, shut up and continue with my life. And they're all, so we've got an entire masterclass actually for free, which we give out for free, how to create mental space. And I think that is part of it as well, the ability to zoom out. And we've got a few exercises that people can use, because I think, from that clarity, it's easier to make decisions. And I also want to, for example, the thing with Ukraine. So I'm helping 10 schools tomorrow from Estonia, which is like a neighboring country there. How to set up education where people have more critical thinking, have more autonomy, where they can find different perspectives. Because, like, in a sense, education is the foundation of democracy, is the foundation of autonomous thinking, it's the future. So what can I do? I can do that, and there are multiple other things. And everyone can do something. You can always make someone else's life better. Even if it's just bringing your grandmother food that helps her, that helps you, makes you happy, makes everyone happy. And little things that you can do, just keep stacking up those little things. Well, focus on the beauty.
And I suppose it's like anything, right? Like we were talking earlier about sort of an all or nothing approach versus, having a little bit of gray area in there. Like, yes, compartmentalize, 5% of your day to thinking about how you can positively affect the people in Ukraine. But the rest of your day, you can do the things like you're describing, right? So yes, you can acknowledge this thing and you can be empathetic, but you can also spend the rest of your day doing this. Just like if you smoke cigarettes or you drink too much, or whatever your vice might be, too much of anything is a negative. So whether that's too much news or too much, lasagna, it can be good or bad, in portions. It's good to be aware, but at the same time, if it becomes all encompassing, now it's an issue. So the last thing I wanted to start getting into with you, or sort of discuss with you, and again, this is maybe a little self-serving because it has to do with my kids and sort of my disdain for their cell phones. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about distraction and the role that distraction plays in, keeping us from our mental adaptability or keeping us from doing that. And we've touched on a couple things throughout. But one of the things that occurred to me also in preparing for this show was that, years ago, when I was a kid, they outlawed the, ability for like cigarette companies to advertise on TV and advertise, on billboards and things like that. And a big part of the determination was, okay, we don't think that, this is good for kids. Kids are seeing Joe Camel or whatever, and they think that that's bad for them. And, we don't want to be encouraging kids to do these bad things, right? And a big part of it too is sort of, trying to take care of people who maybe can't take care of themselves, people who might be influenced into smoking cigarettes through advertising. And so we try and keep them from that thing that's bad for them. And, but nonetheless, we have Apple ads everywhere. We have billboards in Times Square. We have all this stuff everywhere. And these kids are spending, in the case of even my kids, I've had them on days where they're getting, 8 hours a day on their phone. And it's like, what are we doing? Like, how is that okay? Right? They're not getting the exercise they need. They're spending too much time in these scenarios that are affecting the way that they're thinking. They're doing all this stuff. And it's so commonplace that I would argue it's almost worse or at least as bad for you as cigarettes. And so I'm curious what your thoughts are about sort of the role of technology in distraction and if they should be doing something about it. Should they actively be working against building a tool that's so good at keeping someone's attention?
Yeah, I think you're spot on with the analogy as well, of the analogy of smoking. I think that we'll be looking back at this era and we're like, we were using our technology in this way, that we completely gamified our brains so that our kids were like zombies. Also, I see that kids now evolve and they look more like hoops, like half circles. They're always like slanted downwards towards their phone, even when they're together. So these brains are completely derailroaded. They are hijacked. But as a parent, I think the solution is not to just say, "Yeah, man, go play outside. Why don't you do X?" I think because the pull is so strong of the technology and your friends do it, and it's so well made that. Yeah, so I'm investigating this with schools as well. So I don't have like the final solution yet.
Yeah,
but
and I'm not sure there's an answer. So don't worry, I'm not holding you responsible for it. But part of this, it's exactly what you were saying with the kids slumping over. I took my two sons and one of their friends to breakfast the other morning, and me and my wife were sitting across the table from each other talking. And meanwhile, these three are nose down in their phone. Nobody's talking to each other. In fact, they were actually playing a game together online through, while they're sitting at a table. And so, which maybe that's a step up. I don't know. But nonetheless, it was just, this is the kind of behavior we see all the time. And I have to imagine that that's a detriment. How do we find, or make this mental space that we're discussing, or how do we become mentally adaptable when we're basically force fed what is important to us through our phone?
Yeah. I think you should find more things that they can do without their phone. Different kinds of exercises, maybe drawing together with their dad, maybe making designs, maybe getting them like a laptop where they can make stuff together with you. And probably they look up to you, and maybe they can set up their own agency, right?
Yeah.
And instead of a lemonade stand and do that, and then work on that it becomes more. Then if you're on, then make TikTok videos for your own brand. Sure, let's do that.
Yeah.
Or set up like a shop in Minecraft or something like that. But then it contributes to your development instead of that you are being distracted and live by.
Yeah, and I think that tracks back to what you were saying earlier too, about aligning the individual's objectives with the organization's objectives, right? So if we're trying to tie this back to business, I think that aligns, right? the idea, yes, you're distracted by all these things, but a big part of your distraction is that you don't really know what you're doing, or
Exactly.
you're allowing somebody else to do the thinking for you. It's not coming out of your brain, right? Like it's almost like a cruise control or automatic drive.
Yeah.
Instead of
Yeah.
when you are aligned and you have a passion about something and this is ignited in you, whether it's your company's mission or your own business, it seems like that can maybe be the thing that sucks you out of some of this distraction.
Yeah. Yeah. Help them explore their curiosity, and preferably not with their phone, but through drawings, through like all of the stuff that I was allowed to do when I was younger really formed me, like taking photographs, painting on large scale frames, doing like all weird, building a chicken ran with my parents, building a tree hut. But I also was a gamer, but I had the ability to combine it. And I think like if you build like your towers in Fortnite, then also build your tower in the garden, right? Or build it somewhere in the forest. I think, yeah, it's a necessity to be able to balance that out. But the
And I'm not
challenge is
certain
that,
how old you
yeah.
are, but I mean, but for people like my age, Mike's age, like, we spent at least a portion of our life, in my case, I was maybe 18, 19 before I really was on the internet. And, had begun before then, but, by the time I really had good access to it, I was maybe a little younger, maybe 16, 17. But so there was at least a good chunk of my life where it just wasn't a thing, right? To be buried in your device, and then we saw this technology evolve and grow. And, for my boys, both of them are young enough that, they've never had a day where there wasn't an iPhone, and so for them, I think it's just, it's a different thing, right? It's become ubiquitous and it's just part of the way of doing business versus people who had the opportunity to sort of, I guess, live for a while without that stuff.
Yeah. 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 But I think there are still natural things that people radiate to, like creating music, building stuff, painting. And for everyone, it's something different, right? And I think that would help in finding that. And then also helping them curate their streams so that their streams are more beneficial for them. That could also help. Discuss with them maybe the things that they see, how they feel about it, if it helps them, if it contributes to. Because what I see is that it also gives a lot of anxiety, and the shorter breath, more superficial thoughts, and lower concentration. All not so useful.
Yeah. So we're kind of almost at that time, but before we let you go, on your one sheet, the bio that is sent to us before the interview, there's a suggested topic that kind of stands out to me at the moment. And I'll read it here. How to deal with overload and be able to keep your sanity in an always on world. And I actually left the word out there. Information overload is the word, the part that stands out to me, because I'm currently studying software development. I just went through a software boot camp, and that's 12 weeks of information just thrown at me, trying to take it all in, soak it all up. And after the class, the way I've dealt with it is I've segmented it. Is like I focus on one topic and I continue learning that topic. And once I feel like I have a good understanding of that topic, I move on to the next. And I'm wondering if you have maybe some insight on, it's on your bio sheet, so you obviously do have insight on that. But this is one of those things where I could study for 12 hours a day for the next 10 years and still have more to learn. Do you have any suggestions for someone like that?
Yeah, I like that last sentence as well that you put out into the world. Like, indeed, like learning never ends, and also being okay with that. And what I like about the tech space, how it currently is, that you can just start with an MVP where almost nothing is finished, and go into the world with that. And yeah, that also break that up in smaller steps, smaller chunks, like you were doing as well. But also like learning for an entire day, I think you can be creative or process things for like 3 hours And then you can send a few emails and go for a walk. But we think we can do more, which we can't. And then we sort of drain our brain, and we get more tired, and then we don't exercise, and then but we need exercise for the refreshment. And then but I'll send you we can give away the masterclass on how to create that mental space and deal with the information overload. There are actually a lot of things in there to create that space.
Great.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue, because my next question or thing I was going to say is, can you tell people how they can reach out to you and how they can get in touch and maybe check out your masterclass?
Yeah, sure. They can go to adaptablemindset.com, or they can look me up on LinkedIn. And if any of the topics resonate with you, we can have a chat further there. And maybe we can put in the show notes the link to the masterclass, which is just free and it's open, and you don't even need to leave your email address. It's I think 10 to 12 minutes stacked with hacks, methodologies to get that space.
Perfect.
Cool. Yeah, no, we'd love to share that. That would be amazing. So thanks so much, Robert, for doing this. I mean, obviously this is a big conversation, and I think to the point that we hit more than one time in this conversation, there is no just like magic bullet, there is no just pill you can take and you're going to have all this figured out. But I think if we, are being proactive in the way that we think, and we're trying to solve these problems one day at a time, I think that we can start to build that adaptability that you're talking about. Good
stuff, man. Yeah, I very much like having a conversation with both of you.
Thank
very
you.
Present, conscious, and very wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. And thanks to everybody who tunes into the show this week and every week. And see you guys next time.